Dupree, and I joined Cuso in 1977, and I remained in Botswana until March of 1980.
My name is Alan Cullum. I first went overseas with Cuso in 1974 to Botswana. I was 22 years old at the time. My first job was as a district officer development in the Kweneng district of Botswana, and my second job was as secretary of the Kanya Brigades Development Trust, which was doing education for school leaders and village-level enterprises.
My name is Linda Muir. I volunteered with Cuso in 1971. I was 26 years old then, and I went to teach English in Sepapitso Secondary School in Kanye. I had to ask somebody to point out Botswana on the map. I hadn't heard of it. I felt like it was a leap into the unknown. I was young, idealistic, committed to the idea of development.
Our volunteers came from all over Canada. They were often recent graduates, some were married, and some had young children.
The first months, I must admit, were very difficult, adapting to the environment, but also it was adventuresome. Everything was new. Every day was new. What I enjoyed a lot about it was the talking, expressing our opinions. The whole 2 years became that, a wonderful exchange with people there and with the other Cusos. When we would get together for Cuso Bot meetings, the exchanges were just marvelous.
When the first Cuso volunteers arrived, Botswana walked a delicate path. While a signatory to a customs union with other South African states, Botswana provided sanctuary to refugees and exiles from South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Lesotho. For that, the country paid a price. It is a legacy shared by Zambia, Zimbabwe, and other frontline states to South African apartheid.
Botswana was a new country. It was only 10 years old or 9 years old when we arrived. It was an island of peace in the middle of a region of great conflict. It had incredibly good government. It was blessed with a visionary leader in the form of Sir Seretse Khama, which brought great calm and purpose to the country at that point in time. It was a great time to be there.
In the early 1970s, Botswana was newly independent, but it wasn't yet fully independent. For example, it didn't have its own currency yet. It was still using the South African rand. It was tied to the South African economy in a lot of ways. The men were still going over the border to work in the mines, and a lot of the women went to South Africa as domestic labor. And I would say that life was very simple, very basic.
The first groups of volunteers were mostly teachers, urgently needed to strengthen and build up the country's fledgling education services.
It was difficult in the sense of resources. There were very few resources. I had old books for English. The classroom was a set of metal tables, quite rusty, along with the chairs to match them. But manage we did, and it was really quite an experience. And I found them to be enthusiastic, and also enthusiastic about what they were trained in. They would have times for the schooling, and then they'd go on to their sites. It could have been mechanics or construction, anything that was a trade that could help them along for the future.
A decade on, Botswana needed jobs. The people were looking for technical and business skills to run small businesses. Volunteers with technical and administrative expertise were on their way. In 1974, Andy Hamilton, a Cuso staffer, took a 6-month leave of absence to conduct a rural needs survey in Botswana. His findings would help transform the lives and livelihoods of many.
One of the Cuso projects that had a great impact on village life was the sorghum mill project, where a very simple technology was used to create a village-level mill. This had, for a very modest technology and a very village-level operation, it had a huge impact on the lives of women. I quickly learned when I was there that women are actually the glue that holds village life together.
Now, nearly 50 years after it all began, and we left from here to go to there, we reflect on what it meant, for ourselves and for Botswana. In the scale of giving and receiving, memories may be imperfect, but they linger.
Volunteering with Cuso changed my life in a big way. It was my first experience in a developing country. It led me to various kinds of social and political activism over the course of a lifetime. And I believe that the Cuso Botswana experience made me a better Canadian.
I learned so much. The experience has had a huge impact on my life. The colleagues I worked with, the lessons I learned, the things I was able to experience and do. And quite frankly, we have a lot more to be thankful for from the Botswana than they have to be thankful for any contribution that we managed to make. And I will be forever grateful for the experience and having those experiences at a relatively young age, where I was able to use those lessons and experiences as I continued my professional life and my personal life in the years that followed.
It was discovery, it was adventure, it was friendship, love. It was basically one of the best times of my life, where I find I grew the most. I became Mimi, really, there.
Since it began, Cuso International has sent more than 13,000 volunteers to over 100 countries around the world. Our collective efforts to eliminate poverty and reduce inequality continue today.